Hello and welcome back to the Fluent Journey. I'm Jasmine, your host, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Whether you're sipping your morning coffee, commuting to work, or just relaxing at home, this is your space to improve your English skills, one step at a time. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation where you knew what you wanted to say, but the words just didn't come out right? Maybe you hesitated, second-guessed yourself, or struggled to find the perfect expression. Well, you're not alone. This is something almost every English learner experiences at some point. That's exactly why today's episode is going to be a game changer for you. In this session, we're diving into the secret to speaking English fluently and confidently, a topic that every learner wants to master. But here's the good news. Fluency isn't about knowing every single word in the dictionary. It's about how you use the words you already know, how you structure your thoughts, and most importantly, how you build the confidence to speak without fear. In the next few minutes, we'll explore simple but powerful techniques to think in English, the biggest mistakes that stop you from speaking fluently, and how to fix them. Fun, easy-to-follow exercises that will make English a natural part of your daily life. So, are you ready to unlock your fluency and take your English to the next level? Let's get started. Fluency in English is not about speaking fast or using advanced vocabulary. It is about speaking smoothly and naturally without long pauses or hesitation. Many learners struggle because they first think in their native language and then translate into English. This process takes time and makes speech sound unnatural. Instead, a good strategy is to think in English directly. By doing this, you reduce hesitation and increase your confidence in speaking. Another important aspect of fluency is chunking. Native speakers don't speak word by word. They use groups of words that naturally go together. For example, instead of saying, "I do not know," they say, "I don't know." Instead of, "What do you mean?" they say, "What do you mean?" Learning and using these common phrases can make speech sound more fluid and natural. Pausing and intonation are also key elements of fluency. Speaking fluently does not mean speaking without stopping. The way sentences are structured and stressed plays a big role in making speech sound natural. Compare these two sentences. "I really don't know what to do" versus "I really don't know what to do." The second version, with natural pauses and intonation, sounds much more like a native speaker. Fluency in English develops through continuous exposure and regular speaking practice. One of the best ways to improve is by surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Listening to podcasts, watching English videos, and reading books in English can help the brain adapt to the language. The more English a learner hears, the easier it becomes to think and speak without hesitation. Another useful technique is shadowing, where learners listen to native speakers and repeat their sentences exactly as they hear them. This improves pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence. Speaking out loud, even when alone, helps train the mouth and brain to form English sentences naturally. Recording oneself while speaking is also a valuable exercise. Listening to recordings helps learners identify areas for improvement, such as pronunciation errors or unnatural pauses. Over time, this process leads to more fluent and confident speech. Fluency also improves when learners focus on using simple, natural phrases instead of complex sentence structures. Speaking naturally does not mean using long, complicated sentences. Instead, using clear and straightforward language makes communication more effective and confident. To develop fluency, it is important to engage with the language in real-life situations. One way to do this is by having conversations with friends, language partners, or online communities. Speaking regularly with others helps build confidence and makes it easier to use English in daily life. Another way to improve fluency is by observing and mimicking native speakers. Watching interviews, movies, and TV shows allows learners to pick up on natural expressions, sentence structures, and pronunciation patterns. Repeating what native speakers say helps internalize the rhythm of the language. Asking and answering common conversation questions can also help learners become more comfortable with speaking. Simple topics like hobbies, daily routines, and personal experiences allow for easy, natural conversations. Over time, these small discussions lead to greater fluency and confidence. Fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It is about speaking comfortably and confidently. The more a learner engages with English in different ways, the more fluent they become. Many English learners make similar mistakes when speaking, often due to direct translation, incorrect grammar usage, or misunderstanding how native speakers naturally express ideas. While making mistakes is a normal part of learning, identifying and correcting them can significantly improve fluency and confidence. In this section, we will go through some of the most common errors learners make and how to fix them. One frequent mistake is direct translation from a native language. Many learners try to translate sentences word for word, which can result in unnatural phrases. For example, a common error is saying, "I have 25 years," instead of "I am 25 years old." In English, we use the verb to be when talking about age, not the verb to have. Another example is saying, "Can you explain me this?" instead of "Can you explain this to me?" The verb explain requires the preposition to before an indirect object like me. Another common issue is misusing prepositions. Many learners struggle with choosing the right preposition because preposition usage varies from language to language. For instance, some say, "I am married with Sarah," which is incorrect. The correct phrase is, "I am married to Sarah." Similarly, learners often say, "She is good in English," but the correct way to say it is, "She is good at English." Using the right preposition is important because even small mistakes can make a sentence sound unnatural. Learners also tend to overuse the word very when trying to emphasize something. While it's not wrong, native speakers often use stronger adjectives instead. Instead of saying, "It's very cold today," a more natural way to express this is, "It's freezing today." Similarly, instead of "She is very tired," it sounds more fluent to say "She is exhausted." Expanding vocabulary by learning stronger adjectives makes speech more engaging and natural. A mistake many beginners make is saying, "I am agree," instead of "I agree." The word agree is already a verb, so it doesn't need the verb to be. The same applies to phrases like, "I am understand," instead of "I understand." Recognizing which words are verbs and which require to be can help learners avoid these errors. Another frequent grammatical error is saying, "He don't like coffee," instead of "He doesn't like coffee." When speaking in the third person singular, he, she, it, we must use does instead of do. This also applies to sentences like, "She don't have a car." The correct form is, "She doesn't have a car." Understanding subject-verb agreement is essential for constructing grammatically correct sentences. A common mistake in making comparisons is using more better instead of just better. The word better is already a comparative adjective, so adding more is unnecessary. For example, instead of saying, "This book is more better than that one," the correct phrase is, "This book is better than that one." Similarly, instead of "This restaurant is more cheaper," we should say, "This restaurant is cheaper." Knowing which adjectives already express comparison helps avoid redundancy. Many learners confuse the verbs make and do, using them incorrectly in sentences. For example, saying, "I need to do a decision," is incorrect because the correct phrase is, "I need to make a decision." The general rule is, make is used when creating something, e.g., make a plan, make a mistake, while do is used for general activities, e.g., do homework, do a favor. Another incorrect phrase is, "She made her homework," when the correct sentence is, "She did her homework." Learning the correct usage of these verbs can help learners sound more natural. Another mistake is treating people as a singular noun. Some learners say, "People is friendly here," instead of "people are friendly here." Since people refers to more than one person, it always takes a plural verb like are instead of is. This rule applies to all cases where people is the subject of a sentence. Word order is also important, especially with adverbs of frequency like always, never, usually, often. Many learners say, "I go always to the gym," instead of the correct phrase, "I always go to the gym." In English, adverbs of frequency usually come before the main verb, but after the verb to be. For example, he is always late, after is, and I always wake up early, before the main verb. Correct word order makes sentences sound more natural and professional. Lastly, some learners mistakenly say, "I feel myself happy today," because they directly translate from their native language. However, in English, the word myself is unnecessary in this context. The correct phrase is simply, "I feel happy today." Reflexive pronouns like myself should only be used when the subject and object are the same, such as in, "I hurt myself." Making these mistakes is a normal part of learning, but the key to improvement is recognizing and correcting them. By paying attention to these common errors and practicing the correct forms, learners can improve their fluency and sound more natural when speaking English. Over time, small changes in grammar and vocabulary can make a big difference in overall communication skills. One of the biggest challenges for English learners is speaking with confidence. Many people know grammar rules and have a good vocabulary, but when it's time to speak, they feel nervous, hesitate, or worry about making mistakes. This fear holds many learners back from improving their fluency. In this section, we will discuss how to overcome this fear and build confidence when speaking English. The first step is to stop worrying about mistakes. Many learners hesitate because they don't want to say something incorrectly. But the truth is, even native speakers make mistakes. The most important thing is communication, not perfection. Instead of focusing on speaking perfectly, focus on making yourself understood. If you make a mistake, don't stop, just keep going. Over time, you will naturally improve. Another way to boost confidence is to practice speaking every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. The more you speak, the more comfortable you become. You can practice by talking to yourself, describing what you see around you, or even having imaginary conversations. If possible, find a language partner or join an online conversation group. Speaking with others helps you get used to real-life conversations and makes English feel more natural. Listening to native speakers is also a great way to build confidence. Pay attention to how they pronounce words, how they structure their sentences, and their tone of voice. Try to imitate their speech by repeating phrases or using the shadowing technique, where you listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately after. This helps improve pronunciation, rhythm, and fluency. Another tip is to think in English, instead of translating from your native language. When you translate in your head, it slows you down and makes speech feel unnatural. Instead, try to form sentences directly in English. Start with simple thoughts like, "I need to buy groceries," or "It's a beautiful day." As you get better, try thinking in full sentences and even telling yourself stories in English. Finally, be patient with yourself. Learning a language takes time, and confidence doesn't come overnight. The more you expose yourself to English and practice speaking, the easier it will become. Every time you speak, you are improving, so celebrate your progress and keep going. The key to fluency is not just knowledge, but the confidence to use what you know. Pronunciation is an essential aspect of language learning that can often be overlooked. Many English learners struggle with pronunciation, which can lead to misunderstandings or difficulties in being understood by others. In this section, we'll explore practical tips to help you improve your pronunciation and speak English more clearly and confidently. The first step in mastering pronunciation is understanding the sounds of English. Unlike many languages, English has several sounds that don't exist in other languages, making it tricky for learners to pronounce words correctly. For example, the th sound in words like think or this doesn't exist in many languages, so learners might pronounce it as a T or D. To improve your pronunciation, it's important to familiarize yourself with these unique sounds. Phonetic symbols and online resources like YouTube videos or language apps can be incredibly helpful in learning the correct way to produce these sounds. Another important aspect of pronunciation is stress and intonation. English is a stress-timed language, meaning that some syllables are stressed more than others. For instance, in the word banana, the stress is on the second syllable, ba, na, na. In sentences, certain words are stressed to convey meaning. For example, I didn't say you stole the money can have different meanings depending on which word is stressed. By practicing stress and intonation, you can sound more natural and help listeners better understand you. Linking is another feature of English pronunciation that can make speech smoother and faster. Native speakers often link words together, such as saying gonna instead of going to, or wanna instead of want to. When you link sounds, your speech flows more naturally and you sound more like a native speaker. Practicing connected speech, where words blend together, can help you sound more fluent and improve your understanding of spoken English. Listening and mimicking native speakers is one of the best ways to improve your pronunciation. Watch English language movies, listen to podcasts, or even repeat after audio recordings to practice the correct pronunciation. Try to imitate the rhythm, stress, and intonation of native speakers. A helpful technique is shadowing, where you listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately after, matching the speed, tone, and emphasis. This trains your brain to recognize natural speech patterns. Recording yourself speaking is also a great way to assess your pronunciation. By listening to your recordings, you can identify areas where you may be mispronouncing words or using incorrect stress patterns. Compare your recordings with native speakers and work on improving those areas. Finally, remember that consistency is key. Pronunciation improvements won't happen overnight, but with regular practice, you'll notice significant progress. It's essential to keep challenging yourself and to practice speaking out loud every day. Try reading out loud, practicing tongue twisters, or speaking about different topics to reinforce the correct pronunciation. By focusing on pronunciation, you can make sure your communication is clear, effective, and confident. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become, and the easier it will be to connect with others in English. Keep at it, and over time, you'll be amazed at how much your pronunciation improves. Fluency in English takes time, patience, and consistent practice. Throughout this episode, we've covered some of the most common mistakes English learners make, including direct translation errors, misusing prepositions, overusing simple words like very, and incorrect grammar structures. We also discussed how small changes, like using stronger adjectives, understanding subject-verb agreement, and positioning adverbs correctly, can make speech sound much more natural. The key to improvement is not just knowing these rules, but actively applying them in daily conversations. One of the best ways to reinforce what you've learned is through regular exposure to English. Listening to native speakers, whether in podcasts, movies, or audiobooks, helps train your ear for natural expressions and sentence structures. Shadowing or repeating after native speakers is a great technique to improve pronunciation and rhythm. Additionally, keeping a language journal where you write down common mistakes and their corrections can help reinforce proper usage over time. Another important tip is to practice speaking as much as possible. Find a language partner, join an online conversation group, or simply talk to yourself in English. The more you use the language, the more comfortable and fluent you will become. Remember, making mistakes is a natural part of learning. The goal is not perfection but improvement. Every time you correct a mistake and apply what you've learned, you take one step closer to fluency. If you'd like to continue improving, check out English learning apps, grammar websites, and online communities where you can ask questions and get feedback. Some great resources include language exchange platforms, YouTube channels for English learners, and even books that focus on common mistakes in English. The more you engage with the language, the faster you will see progress. Finally, keep a positive mindset and enjoy the learning process. Fluency is a journey, and every small effort counts. Keep practicing, stay curious, and don't be afraid to speak. You are improving every day. Thank you for joining today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy learning.